There are many reasons or causes for fatigue, but here are a few sneaky ones that I see quite often when working with clients. Let's dive in. The first one I wanted to talk about is insulin resistance. Now, this is one you should be aware of when you do your annual labs with your primary care or your practitioner, but sometimes your doc might not always test for it. And I'm going to lump insulin resistance and prediabetes kind of in the same category, even though technically prediabetes just means that your hemoglobin A1C is in this range that's not quite diabetes, but still a little bit elevated. But one of the reasons I often see prediabetes happen is because what happens first is that your body starts to become resistant to insulin. And that often happens gradually or slowly over time and can occur before you see that hemoglobin A1C number start to creep up. Now, the reason why this may cause things like fatigue or make you feel tired without even really knowing it, because when the body starts to have an issue with your glucose metabolism or glucose regulation, it can really start to throw off some other hormones and other areas in the body. Your body starts to work harder to produce more insulin because your cells are now resistant to the insulin it's usually creating. So it has to pump out a little bit more to start to get the same effect. This puts a tax on your or a burden on your metabolic processes in your body, which can lead you to feeling some fatigue. On top of that, it can start to increase your oxidative stress levels, and it can also start to increase inflammation. And when we have some systemic inflammation, you can often get the symptom of fatigue or feeling tired or just feeling worn out. And it makes sense because your body's working harder. So this is one of the things I always look at when working with clients inside of my coaching program. Not only do we look at things like your hemoglobin A1C, but we also look at your insulin sensitivity. And there's a specific test or number of tests that you can do to actually know what this number is and see if this may be contributing to your symptoms. If you would like to learn how I do that and how to work with me inside of that program, the Better Health Blueprint, you can click on the link in the description box and you can learn all about it. Another common cause should be no surprise here on this channel, and that is stress. Yes, chronic stress can absolutely leave you feeling exhausted, tired, and worn out. And I know this may sound really simple, like duh, but so many times people don't actually realize how much of a toll the stress may be taking on their body. Oftentimes people living in a state of chronic stress, or I often call it living in a state of survival, you're just kind of one emergency to the next or one task to the next. You don't realize how close you are to burnout. Now, I have a series all about burnout. I'll leave it up here. And when you get to a certain stage of burnout, you really just get tired. Not only do you get physically tired, but you get mentally tired, which can cause a kind of spiraling effect where you feel tired mentally, which makes you feel more tired physically, and they kind of spiral down. Just like with insulin resistance, chronic stress can wreak havoc on your hormones as well. And if your hormones are out of balance, you of course are going to feel exhausted and fatigued. Again, being chronically stressed can push pathways of oxidative stress, leading to systemic inflammation, leading to more fatigue and more tiredness. Are you getting what I'm saying here? And that may be whether or not you feel like you're actually managing it well. Eventually, it can take a toll on you both physically and mentally, leading to exhaustion and fatigue and burnout. Another common kind of silent cause that we don't really talk about a lot, and I'm going to lump two together here, that's depression and pain. So in my physical practice in Seattle, I see a lot of basically kind of pain patients. I deal a lot with sports medicine and chronic pain. I see the toll, both physically and mentally, that chronic pain can cause, and a lot of times it leads to a feeling of fatigue. Again, your body's inflamed, you're probably having a lot of oxidative stress because your body's trying to repair itself, depending on what type of injury you have. And that really just physically can wear you out. And that's where depression can also come into play. When you have, a low mood kind of all the time, or you start to feel depressed, it can actually make the pain worse, which can then actually make the fatigue worse, so on and so forth. You can see how all of these things can start to spiral and make you feel really exhausted. When you feel depressed or when you have a lot of pain, you don't want to move generally. You don't want to do things like exercise that could give you more energy, that could boost your mood, but you just don't feel like you have the energy or don't feel like your body can take it. And this is often a chronically kind of overlooked, I think, piece. And it's important to recognize that this could be contributing to some of your symptoms. So seeking out the appropriate remedies for either pain relief or kind of shifting your mindset, whether that be medication or meditation, is really important to make sure that you do. And another really common cause that it's so simple that we often overlook it is our nutrition. Here in the West, especially in America, it's very easy to be overfed but undernourished. So again, I always come back to the idea of looking at your nutrition pretty closely, taking a look at your macro breakdown. Are you getting enough of the basic carbs, fats, and protein to sustain enough energy for your metabolic demands, enough energy for your brain, enough energy so that you actually don't feel exhausted? And I know that it sounds simple, but I bring it up because I see it so often when I actually do either a diet recall or have a client track their nutrition for the week. We take a look and lo and behold, they're either not getting calories that have value, meaning calories that actually have, vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. Calories from a Big Mac are not the same as calories from, a well-balanced meal. It's not the same as having a meal that has a high quality lean protein as well as enough vegetables that have vitamins, minerals, nutrients, fiber, all the things that you actually need. So all calories are not created equally, and this is one of the things I see really commonly in working with clients. Even those that think that their nutrition is pretty on point, generally always room for improvement if you're having symptoms. And again, I have to point out for my ladies out there, the most common thing I see is not getting enough protein with your meals. So if you are having symptoms of fatigue that have been hanging around, maybe you have talked to your doctor, maybe you haven't, maybe check in with these things. So looking at things like insulin resistance and blood sugar management, pre-diabetes, taking real actual evaluation of your stress levels and seeing where you can be more resilient, where can you reduce some stress, where can you cut things out, have you overcommitted to some things, do you just need some help? Seeking help for things like depression and pain management, and also again looking at your nutrition. These are all things that are actually seem quite simple, but sometimes you need a little bit of help or you need a little bit of guidance or accountability and support. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, then you can click on the link below and learn about how to work with me or how to consult with me if you're not quite ready for an intense coaching experience. All right, I hope that this video was helpful and I hope that you learned something. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and I will see you in the next video. Bye.